Candy cane. Anybody out there know candy cane?
Hey Russell, this is Black Sheep.
Hey, Black Sheep. Do you know where I can find candy cane?
You've been driving around all day looking for a voice.
I need to find candy cane.
The thriller genre is designed to develop intense excitement, suspense, and anxiety in the audience. It is the literal definition of keeping you at the edge of your seat. Thrillers often revolve around high-stakes situations, near-danger conflicts, and characters facing overwhelming obstacles. Some common examples that are used in thriller films often is when a character or multiple characters have a sense of urgency, unpredictable twists and turns, including mental games, and having a mysterious or relentless antagonist. Today I will be covering Joyride 2001 and how Rusty Nail, who is the main antagonist of this film, heightens the fear of the main characters without ever revealing his face, including to the audience. Movies like Bird Box, Final Destination, and the Blair Witch Project play this unique horror trope of never showing the villain as well. I can definitely say that Final Destination did scare me as a kid. The idea of actually dying with everyday objects around you was completely terrifying but brilliant for the horror genre. The shower scene in the first film terrified me, but eventually I got over it. Joyride 2001 follows two brothers named Lewis and Fuller who play a harmless prank on a trucker named, you guessed it, Rusty Nail, using a CB radio, only to become the targets of his relentless, vengeful pursuit. As the film continues, Rusty Nail terrorizes them and their friend Venna across the deserted highways. The three of them had to survive his deadly mind games. While the film doesn't truly show his face, the characters were able to hear his voice on the CB radio, including his truck. Before we go any further, we need to speak about the main characters and how their actions affected them. College student named Lewis, played by the late Paul Walker, planned to drive cross country during the summer break so he can pick up his childhood crush, Venna, played by Lily Subliski, and to take her home. He was secretly hoping that their trip together would spark a romance between them. Before he could go straight to Venna in his car, Lewis got a call from his mother that his troubled older brother, Fuller, played by Steve Zahn. Lewis went to go bail him out, and now Fuller was coming along with him on the road trip despite not having the closest sibling relationship. The setting of Joyride 2001 primarily takes place in empty highways where you barely see any cars driving and remote areas. Their destination to Venice was a place that was pretty much far away from cities or any other populated areas. Lewis started his journey in California, then went to Salt Lake City, Utah to bail out his brother Fuller from jail, and they were now headed to pick up Venna in Colorado. During their drive to Venice, Fuller installed a CB radio in the car to entertain themselves by talking to truckers on the radio. Lewis and Fuller came in contact with Rusty Nail at some point on the CB radio. They were using fake names like Black Sheep for Fuller and Candy Cane for Lewis. Fuller convinces Lewis to play a prank on Rusty Nail using the Candy Cane persona. Lewis pretended to be a woman so they can set up a meeting with Rusty Nail at the motel they were staying at. Lewis told Rusty Nail to meet Candy Cane in room 17, which was occupied by an angry man Fuller met while he was purchasing a room from the motel worker. This all went down while both brothers were right next door at midnight. When Rusty showed up at the motel later that night, from their own room, Lewis and Fuller were able to listen through the walls. At first, hearing the conversation between Rusty Nail and the man in room 17 sounded amusing, thinking that the two of them were just having an awkward exchange. However, the brothers started hearing sounds of struggle and loud banging noises while listening through the wall. The next morning, both Lewis and Fuller found out that the man from room 17 was found severely injured and was left in a coma. The man was found on the side of the road with his jaw ripped off. The seriousness of his injuries leaves him in critical condition and unresponsive, which is why Rusty Nail's actions carry such a horrifying weight. Lewis and Fuller believed they were simply pulling a harmless prank that would embarrass Rusty Nail and would just annoy the man who was staying in room 17. They had no idea what kind of person they were messing with. Rusty Nail was capable of extreme violence, and he took the encounter way too far. The worst part is that Lewis and Fuller have no clue how he looks like. I could be wrong on this, but I think the creators purposely chose to show the color red while the brothers were making the prank on Rusty Nail to symbolize that there was danger on the horizon waiting to happen, and so it did. On the second motel where Vanna was taken, the use of the red color appeared once again, emphasizing the escalating danger and tying the two key events together visually. The brothers thought that they were never going to hear about Rusty Nail again until Lewis heard his voice on the CB radio. It turns out that Rusty Nail had been following the brothers ever since they left the motel where the incident took place, because he mentioned to them that their tail light was broken, which it was. The chilling calmness and subtle rage in his tone forces the audience to imagine what kind of person is behind the voice, which is often scarier than actually seeing the character. By keeping him in the shadows and having his truck become a stand-in for his physical presence, the movie lets the audience's imagination fill in the blanks, making him more terrifying. The rest of the film was basically like a cat and mouse game. Rusty Nail began stalking the brothers, turning their road trip into a nightmare. At one point, he used his truck to run them off the road so they can apologize for the prank. But his torment did not end there. Both siblings agreed to not mention what they had been through to Vanna once they picked her up in Colorado. Lewis and Fuller thought that they were never going to encounter Rusty Nail until Lewis got a call from him from another motel they were in. Vanna was now aware that both brothers had been followed from a crazy psychopath. Since Rusty Nail followed them when they picked up Vanna, he saw that she had a close friend named Charlotte. He kidnapped her after they left the campus that they were in. This forces the group to comply with his twisted game, or else he would have killed Charlotte. Not knowing how he looks like kept a constant tension to the viewers of the film, including the characters. The crazy part is that Rusty Nail now knew the real names as well. He escalated his terror by forcing them into dangerous situations, such as humiliating themselves at a truck stop and making them run through a cornfield while he was chasing them with his truck. Unfortunately, he kidnaps Vanna from the cornfield and lures the brothers to a motel where he set up a trap involving Vanna tied to a chair in one room and a shotgun aimed to her. They had until midnight to get there, and time was running out. They had to steal someone's truck because the ride was caught on fire and the place wasn't closed if they went on foot. Once they got to the motel, they had to work together to save Vanna. Fuller got injured during the rescue, but they managed to free her before the police opened the door and the shotgun went off. The film ended in a very chilling twist. Rusty Nail was still alive. he only left his truck behind. The driver that was driving was the ice trucker that Lewis and Fuller saw early in the film. Rusty Nail must have taken his body and he planted the ice trucker's body in the truck. The three main characters heard Rusty Nail's voice one last time on the radio as he prepared to find his next victims. He was saying the exact same thing that he said when Lewis and Fuller heard his voice the first time. Rusty Nail's absence from the screen makes him a far more effective villain than invisible, threatening antagonist. Joyride capitalizes on the idea that what you can't see and can't predict is infinitely more terrifying than what you can. In conclusion, it proves that the scariest villains are the ones that live in the viewer's imagination.